Welcome to another episode of Through the Web. This will be an interesting one because we are not going to talk about what's happening over the week, but we're talking about some companies in the world of music to start with, and also we'll see if there are enough tech out there that will replace musicians and creators altogether.
Yeah, this will be an interesting one. So let's get into it.
Yeah. So, are there any companies specifically that you think you like in the world of music to use a lot?
Yeah, I'd say my two biggest ones will probably be Ableton AG from Germany. They're a digital audio workstation company, so producers use them to make beats and all that kind of stuff. And Fender would be the other one, big brand in live music. Yeah, so I guess for me, music is a big part of just me, I guess. So I make a lot and I listen to a lot. And those two companies kind of dominate the landscape when it comes to artists on the electronic front and on the live music front. So there's, I guess, reasons for that because the products are highly regarded as quality, and I don't know, I guess that in their respective fields they kind of hold they're kind of like the apples, I guess, if you know what I mean. So on the Ableton front, the way that the software is laid out and the way it behaves and performs is just so intuitive, and it allows you to do a lot. It's quite flexible and free flowing. So for example, if you have like a chain rack, you can just copy and paste that and put it somewhere else, and you can automate. I don't know if I'm going to be talking about things like, anyway, you can automate things in ways that are like anything that you want to do, you can figure out how to do it in multiple different ways. So actually just yesterday night, I was working on a music video for something that a song that I'm doing. Yeah. So I was going between Ableton and Premiere Pro, and then it felt like I'd gone back 20 years, like when I was using Premiere Pro, because it was just, everything's so janky, and it just feels like it's coded like just code piled upon code, just the way that it behaves. Like something as simple as you have like a video block, right, of something that in your timeline, and you drag it across and it's got this white thing of where the video was and then like, to where it's going to be. And it just feels like it's about to break when it's doing that, but that's just how it performs. And just like things have how the snap grid, you can take it off, but it's kind of a bit still finicky, and just little things like that. It just kind of makes you feel like, why can't things just work the way that they do in Ableton? I've keep thinking that over and over again. And on the Fender front, I think that they've always made great instruments, and they always have a particular feel to them when you're playing them. So I've always enjoyed that, and I don't have much else to say on that point.
No, it's actually, I have a few follow-up questions. So I think there are like levels to being a musician, right? I think they're like absolute professionals. Would you? I don't think you'd.
I wouldn't say professional, but
you're in the realms. Like you're probably maybe a tier.
Yeah, I don't do this for a living or anything. It's just a hobby. Yeah. And like when it comes to like the fine essences of production in terms of like mastering and super blah blah blah, I'm just like, whatever. Like it sounds good enough, we're fine. Yeah, so it's kind of like that. Yeah. Yeah.
So for me, I'm like probably the lowest tier. where
I saw you rocking out on the bass, so I wouldn't say that.
So like I perform live and stuff like that, and do coverage and stuff like that as well. But in terms of producing original music, it's mostly still within the realms of having a guitar, coming up with a pattern, and then create a song, lyrics and self-expression, all that kind of stuff. So very fireplace, campfire kind of vibe at this stage still. But I've always been fascinated by how a lot of musicians kind of go in depth about these details, right? I know you mentioned that you don't go that deep, but obviously you go more depth than I do. With these technologies that are coming out, especially if you think of AI and doing what they are doing in so many different industries, a lot of the musicians, they love this aspect where they're tinkering around a little bit and just changing, just this little bit of the sub bass or increasing the frequency a little bit.
Yeah.
How far are we away from AI completely taking over that? It feels to me we're not far away at all. And if we aren't, do you think there's a use case where anybody can just, you'd be like, oh, I want the sub bass of that song there to completely be the same in basically like a filter of Instagram, but for music, essentially, and make everyone that, because the idea of Instagram used to be that everybody can create like a vintage style photography, you know, or they have like a catalog of photos that reminds them of the past. Like that was the initial kind of like, you know, anybody can add filter, which used to take ages or something like that. And then slowly it turned into like a full on photo sharing app. But the idea of being able to edit at the click of a button, which you couldn't in the past, is what pretty much created all this quote unquote pseudo photographers over the whole social media expansion. So for music, it feels like it shouldn't be that far away. And if it isn't, what does that do to having more music creators that you'll see every day?
The thing about music is it's a lot of things are harder than it looks. Like, so for example, if you're making a song, like you can bang something out in like a day, right? But then is it going to sound good on all speakers? Frequencies clashing, like a thing's a bit too busy. Like, I guess there's a lot of thought and iteration that goes into making something that's like average to like something that's, like this is listenable, this is all right. So I feel that with the AI aspect of it, I don't think it would be like, you make me this song like this straight away. I think there's going to be like a lot of steps that will kind of, go before that. So if there's particular aspects that you want, so for example, you want drums to be programmed a certain way, like say, give me a beat in this style, and then it will take the MIDI sequencer. So like essentially the digital inputs of where you can place any sound on top of, it will give you that. And then so you have like a pattern, and then you can work from that. I think that's the way it will start. Like not exactly just like going from raw audio files to other raw audio files. I think that's very difficult. Not sure how far away we are from that. But just on the Ableton front, so just another thing that I like is, so for example, you have like say a drum loop, right? It's like in a wave pattern. You can drag that to a MIDI clip, and it literally takes the groove of it and all the elements and changes it into MIDI. So like you can get like some crazy stuff. So for example, in this song I did like yesterday, I took the drum pattern and then put it in another track to make it a MIDI, but then I used some of that MIDI clip and I sampled a voice. So the voice is like this real staccato thing with like stuff going everywhere, but it's like rhythmic. I don't know. But yeah, just stuff like that. And like, rival DAWs, like digital audio workstations like Fruity Loops, they can't do stuff like that.
Right.
It's all like, anyway. But so for the AI stuff, I feel that we're quite a long way away from, get me this bass line like this. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's someone working on something in some company somewhere that will come out next week and be like, we've cracked the code. Yeah. But as it stands now, I still think a lot of this stuff is going to be MIDI based, and then you put the sounds on top kind of thing. So. Yeah,
because I remember when, because I still like play around. Do you ever use SoundForge or N-Track?
Interestingly enough, no. But I only heard of SoundForge because of that Burial documentary, and apparently he made that album Untrue on SoundForge, which is, I don't believe, I believe he sampled some stuff, because there's no way you could do it, man. Right. Like it's literally like using I don't know, like
Audacity or something.
Yeah. And it's like you can't, I don't know.
So these are like free software that were available ages ago. So I managed to like tinker around with it, and a lot of my editing prowess came from the idea of, I've got like a few tracks here and there. And when I was a kid, like I've always liked music, and this is like even in my pre-teens, right? When I would like get a song, they're like, it sounds interesting. Can I take the voice out of that? And I could never, right? Because obviously there was a lot of manual work at that time. Today,
with this,
Today, you've got so many different machine learning or AI software. It's just so easily you can just put in and then just divide.
It's not, okay, so I've tried this only for one song. So it was a 1975 song where I liked the vocal, but I wanted to get rid of everything else. So it's not quite perfect. Like there's like, it's quite warbly a little bit, and there's like bits of saxophone that come through and everything.
That's right. It's not perfect. You can still get like some, but still I think
it's way better. Yeah.
Right. And then it just tells me that there would be so many companies out there who would probably be working with this, because these AI companies that are doing these things aren't big companies. They're like, just some startups, maybe some passionate individuals who sit in the cross section of loving music and being engineers and something like that, or coders. And they're just playing around with something they probably wanted it themselves. Like, I'm sure if I had coding background, I probably would have tinkered around. Oh, let me just create that, right? So eventually, what I think was going to happen, maybe Ableton's also very much into the hardware world, but they could potentially buy up like that would be a great direction for companies like that, where they've got a big hardware presence and a bit of software as well. But this is where they can kind of pick up like smaller companies and then just kind of eat them up.
Like, if a company came out with something like that, like, you'd be a fool not to, as in like if you were Ableton or even Fruity Loops or whatever, not to just capitalize that. But then again, this company could just release it as a VST, which is a plugin that,
that logs in for every other.
Yeah, exactly. But the thing with that is like, I don't do this, but a lot of people do torrent, so you can lose a lot of revenue. That's an interesting point. Like the fact that there's this competitive race of these different companies that are all trying to outcompete each other in this field. You end up with things progressing a lot faster than one may think. But I don't know. Like music's such a, with AI images, like there's plenty of examples of a lot of things. Like you kind of can see something and replicate it. But I guess with music, it's it just seems to me like a layer on top if you're going to start creating something original. Like you can listen to a bunch of artists and then try and, mash something up that's in like, within the data set of what you have and put it together. But the way that it happens usually just comes out fuzzy, and you can see there's an idea in there, but it's like hard to like, something that's crystal clear, like, the way a drum snare hits, or like all of these little things, they have to be.
I think there's two aspects of the question that I'd ask. So I think the first aspect is there's the compositional element to it, which I don't think AI will be able to replace completely, at least not yet anyway, because there's the same argument as having a text prompt, but for music, like, create me like DALL-E 2 for music, basically, like, imagine a Billy Joel song in the style of Britney Spears, which a lot of people do covers of, which is quite interesting to see, and that's where their creative prowess, shows. But I don't think we're far away from that. But what I'm talking about is more on the technical side of things. So basically, you've got the song or the picture in the Instagram example, and then you add a filter on top. So the filter not being the actual technical filter we use for music, but something that. Imagine, I record 4 different elements and it sounds like I haven't played around with the equalizer or anything like that. You already get preset equalization, but imagine if you could be able to just pick out a song that you want it to sound exactly like that. So you're talking AI just picks up on it.
Okay. So you're talking about like frequency response and like,
Exactly. Okay. Because when I, for example, look at producers, they get to tinker around like with the little details of changing it up a little bit, where you can hear the bass a little bit stronger and stuff like that. Like imagine writing that stuff down for an AI. You already have the song that you've recorded, and it cuts off like maybe weeks and months of work.
But the thing is,
many.
I don't know. For me anyway, like I find that stuff sometimes to be the most fun. Like sometimes, I agree. Literally, I just love listening to sounds. That's it. Like I was like, so like if I, change the attack with the compressor a little bit, what does it do here? And it's like, oh wow, like that's coming out a little bit more. Let's continue down that path. But you take out that discovery when you just have the AI that says, here you are. But in terms of on a purely technical sense, do I see that as being possible? Eventually, maybe, because what it could do is it could just basically listen to, I don't know, it'll get like a sound stage or a picture of the track you've inputted as in what you're trying to copy, and then it will try and apply that to the track that you have. So it'll just be like a combination of EQs and compressors and all that kind of stuff. But the thing is, I don't know if for some of these things it could be possible to get one to sound like the other. Like maybe not, I'm not sure. But That is certainly very interesting, actually. Interesting question.
I think actually that's next, to be fair. You heard it here first. I think that's going to be next, like DALL-E 2 for music.
Well, it's not really, because this is like almost like style transfers. That's a very common thing in AI. So like paint this painting in the style of Monet or whatever.
Right.
Know, but it's not generating the song from scratch.
No. But I think that will also be available next.
So, well, that
already exists?
Yeah. So OpenAI's Jukebox. They have done, this is years old now.
Right.
But what tends to happen is the AI doesn't quite understand song structure. So it starts out strong and then it kind of just goes off in this direction. And then inevitably you get the demon screams where it's just like, it's trying to like sing, but it's just, it's creepy. It just goes into this weird direction.
But there's also this really interesting thing that you showed me this week was this nonstop self-generating stream of music that just keeps happening, and this was a gent.
It was an infinite gent stream.
Right.
Yeah. So the guy that made this, he decided to code, well, just as a hobby, just basically code. I don't know how to explain it. It's literally like a machine, a digital machine that just creates gent. So what he would do is he recorded like every note on his guitar, and then, you know, a few drum at different intensities as well for variation. And then he recorded drum patterns and not drum patterns, but drum hits and all this kind of stuff. And then he created this code environment that basically has a few limits. So like things have to kind of be musical. So like, you know, this section would be like the introduction and it have certain aspects to that, and it means the guitars will do certain things and whatever. And then it would have like a middle and then an outro and whatever. And then the song length will kind of determine what sections get put where. And then also there's kind of like a bit of a variation. So it's like there's a probability that an outro may not be in this track, or if this happens, then there is more probability that there's an outro. So he mixed all of these things together. So this wasn't completely AI or AI at all, really. It was just his coding in a very clever way. But the result was always rhythmic, always hypnotic, always it went hard. Every single track. There's like thousands of tracks.
When he said it was like 6,000 something
tracks number 5,000, blah 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 blah. But it was just like, you know, if you're a listener of Gent out there, like these rhythms were hard. They were really really good. I showed you a reaction video of this guy who was watching it, and he just couldn't believe it. It was like, we're done. Musicians are just done.
So just to be clear, he recorded the parts individually themselves in different rhythmic fashions.
No, there was no rhythm to it. Yeah, so it was just like bam, bam. Like this is just recording each note, and it's like, you know, hundreds or maybe even thousands of individual notes and samples. So it would have taken him a long time to sample everything. So it's not like there was a pre-written rhythm.
What about drums as well? So every beat is like separate, like a snare beat.
Yep.
And, oh wow!
Yep. So so these songs come out and they're wild. And then now he's like made a Bandcamp, I'm pretty sure, and it's on Spotify and stuff. So it's selling like hundreds of songs for like $3 that this AI has generated. But it leads to an interesting question, because it's like, is this a bit of shade on gent musicians then? If an AI can just make it and everything sounds good?
I mean, we were just watching a clip right before we started where we were talking about this AI rapper, right?
Yes.
And essentially a team of programmers, for example, had the likeness of this avatar of a rapper, potential rapper, and then they were generating the music, the sound, the lyrics, and all that kind of stuff. So we're already seeing that play out in so many. I think the first instance of that was getting an AI to that I remember seeing was getting an AI to write a song in the style of Travis Scott, which was it fed like all his lyrics and then said that, oh, can you just write a lyrics and then, you know, something like that. So we're already seeing that stuff happen. But the interesting thing when you sent me that link about that gent musician and the YouTube link, I actually had it on in my background, right, while I was working. And I think I listened to it for at least 20, 25 minutes as it was going. At some point, though, you kind of got lost into it. Like, I couldn't decipher one song from the other. And I don't know if it was planned to be like that, where it was just one flow of one stream of continuous sound that are similar, or if it's just the outcome that there's only so many combinations you can create without sounding unique every time. So I feel, again, going back to that conversation of will AI ever replace creators, I think it will for a lot of cases. But again, the ones that will rise up will be the ones that are unique, right? So essentially what pop music is formula, right? Like they have a 3 to 5 minute period because they had to be on the radio. Nowadays, it's about streams on Spotify, and therefore that informs the size or length of the song. And they have to decide, where does the hook go? Even like one of the artists that rose up from TikTok, she mentioned that she was trying to include words that would be more powerful at the start of a TikTok, at this basically, and inform her song using those words, because that will potentially work well on TikTok, right? So it's crazy how these things are forming. Anyway, we've discussed about that in the past, but I think because we've already been following formula for pop music, for mainstream stuff, this will probably replace some of that stuff, maybe some stock footage, stock music, a lot of the background scores that are not very, that don't need a lot of emotional reaction to. So therefore, people like Hans Zimmer will always have a job. I don't think the ones who are, doing well, and this is where you have to really step up.
Yeah,
so you can't just get by.
A lot of musicians will be like, that's not fair. But
same thing with Midjourney. Same thing with Midjourney.
Is it? So are we saying that the people who are at risk are not the good ones? Is that what you're implying?
I am not only implying. I'm saying that if you're bad at it, you will
spicy take.
Hot take. And it's red in there.
I don't know what button I was like.
God knows. But hopefully it's damn.
I was hoping for the foghorn, but anyway.
But overall, I think, if you are, and there's this whole talk about capitalism and all that kind of stuff where the market decides and things like that. But I do believe that if you're a musician or a creator who is creating for the sake of reaching an audience, it is your audience who decides if you're good or not, right? There's that whole other aspect of it, the different artists, you do it for self-expression, which, is a separate conversation. You can always do that. Nobody's stopping you from doing it. You can create in your room. You can go and busk in the sun or something like that. But if you're creating for an audience, the audience will decide if you're good or not. And for the majority of the music out there, I think one thing that the internet has done is that it has allowed anyone and everyone to be a creator, to be a musician, but only the ones that either have commercial value or the ones that actually have artistic merit that appeals to a slightly broader audience will be the ones who will succeed in this field. If you want to become a full-time creator, artist, musician.
I think it's brutal, but probably true. And it's ultimately just like a cosmic great unfairness. Like they didn't ask for AIs to come and scratch away at the bottom.
And the thing is, there's always been this grand, and we're going to a bit of philosophical angle here, but there's always been this grand expectation for being fulfilled financially through the art or the content that you create. But the truth is, historically, artists, the idea of starving artists has been there for ages. Whether you were a sculptor during the Renaissance period, or whether you were...
I guess it's always gotten harder because,
exactly.
back in the day, if you wanted a portrait of anyone, you would have to get someone to come and draw it. But then cameras came around and people still like portraits, like being drawn, but then it made it so much easier. And then now with that, we have the internet, there's just so much more competition, and it's almost ubiquitous to find art. And now with AI, it's kind of just like...
But imagine like back in the days when you would have to, like somebody would come to you for a portrait, right? If you weren't good enough, you probably wouldn't have jobs. Like even in the Middle Ages or in the Renaissance period or whenever, there were painters and artists.
It's true. If you weren't good enough, you would have jobs. But the thing is, I'm sure that there's some people that are good that still will be affected. Take AI images for example. Like some of those things that come out from it. Like yes, if you look at the hands and the fingers, they're a bit wonky, but you look at that and it is a piece of art. Like it looks good. And I can't help but think that someone could be doing that and now someone's going to be paying an AI, not paying an AI. So instead of paying the artist, they're going to just be using the AI to get what they need. I think that's just the fact of it. And that artist was good. It's not that he wasn't.
Yeah, so I think that's the level playing field now. So now the artist who was good now have to think.
How do you, like, if this AI in 5 seconds is put like this amazing, gently stroked, brushed, glowing portrait of the most magnificent scene you've ever seen in 5 seconds, like, what is this artist who works a week to do that? What are they going to step up to? Like,
just give up.
Just make like living paintings somehow.
No, like I mean, that's where you have to think that, okay, like commercially, like you can't just stick to your core artistic art, urges. You have to think, okay, what can I do commercially to network better, to find jobs that are potentially outside of the AI.
Like pull yourself up by the bootstraps, Idis.
With art though, I can't say the same thing about other areas, but with art though, what I've seen is being able to create and having a good network are the key factors to become successful. And you have to do it consistently, right? Especially in today. Again, this is if you want to turn this into your full-time living thing.
Yeah,
I'm not saying you have to do it because.
Okay, yeah. So maybe I'm kind of slipping on that fact. Yeah, I guess if this is your job, you're going to have to.
Exactly. Yeah. If this is your full-time, and it's the same thing with any other industry that is being taken over by AI or automation or something. Like as a professional in the industry, you have to keep yourself up to date. Okay, what's happening here? What's happening? If you're a full-time person making living through that specific career, right? If you're a hobbyist or a part-timer, it's totally up to you how you want to do it, because there are still people who are painting portraits. Very few, but they're doing it because they love it. They have maybe some income out of it. They're not bothered by whatever's happening. As I'm sure you're not bothered by AI, because you're gonna keep making burn water music no matter what. I can guarantee that. It's
just what I love.
Exactly.
Just one last thing and then I'll wrap it up. I did see this Twitter thread of this woman who. Now the problem is I can't remember the end of the story, but the beginning of it was quite interesting. So she got famous by painting like not Renaissance, but like that famous painting of the Last Supper.
Mm-hmm.
She kind of did that, but with Pepe the Frogs. So she like made canvas paintings of it and everything and sold prints, but then she ended up making a lot of money. And I was like, oh, that still happens? I didn't really think so. And I mean, a lot of money. And then she somehow lost it all, but I can't remember how. And ended up down on the dumps, and then it was a recovery road to redemption, but I can't remember what actually happened. But I thought that was interesting that, there's still spaces for this. It's quite rare, but you can have someone who does something unique, a little bit of a twist. Maybe it's most often contemporary, so it's new and fresh. Like Pepper the Frog obviously is a recent phenomenon, and it just resonates with people. I think it was people on the right who thought it was funny or whatever, and they're like, yeah, we'll buy this.
And there's the thing, you have to think outside the box as well, right? Like, for example, and I think before the AI stuff, people have curiosity in general. So I remember I still follow this guy called Jim Will Paint It on Facebook. He's huge in terms of the following that he has. And what happens is he takes requests from his audience, right? I found him when he was already big and still doing well. He'll find an audience and who'll give him like very crazy scenarios. Pretty much like LL Cool J playing something, like throwing axe by the tavern with the Queen, right? And he does it on Microsoft Paint. So he does the entire thing, sits down on Microsoft Paint, right? Now, obviously an AI can do that even better, but the novelty of it is his character, how witty his outcome is, and the fact that he does it on Paint, right? So that's his, unfair advantage. I think there's a whole concept around unfair advantages, right? And that's how he's built his unique value. So things like that, I think, will continue no matter how many AIs take over. But it's the conversation of whether you're full-time, how much, I guess, connection you have with the art that you make.
And also the connection to your audience or the people buying it.
Like, and again, as soon as in the thing that I've always said, is that as soon as you decide to put your content or your art out there for others to receive it, it'll be dictated by the ones who are receiving it and you're creating for their consumption at the end of the day. And especially if you're charging for it, that's when you're a professional in the game and you have to think differently. It's not for you anymore. So
yeah. All right. Well, very interesting topic. Kind of went in a few directions, but hope you guys did enjoy this very interesting episode. Let us know what you think down in the comment section below. And till next time, we'll catch you later.